Welcome to another episode of Boards and Brews. In this episode, we'll be talking about two things. The first being Small World. It is a fantasy area control game. Now, it has been compared to Risk, and it has similar mechanics, but at the end of the day, it is a completely different game. So we'll get more into that. And before we do that, we do have an IPA that Zach's going to talk about now.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Now, for a fantasy game, I couldn't think of anything more perfect than something called Dankness Monster IPA. It's actually made by a nano brewery that's based out of a brass tap craft beer bar in Fort Lauderdale. They're called Flagler Village Brewing. They recently launched to the public. I'm really excited to share something from my own community with all of you, and I'm wishing nothing but Flagler Village the best. It's really good. It has a great aroma, great taste. Drinks very easy, but I think will satisfy the palate of any astute IPA person or anybody who's looking to explore more IPAs or craft beers in general, and I can't wait to see what else Flagler Village Brewing has to offer.
I think a name like Dankness Monster is pretty awesome. So we'll get into the components of Small World now. So we're going to crack open Small World now. It has been compared to Risk because it has the same concept of taking over area, taking over land. Now, that's pretty much the only similarity, and it kind of ends there. You don't have to protect the area that you take over. You just need to make your money and go. The object and the way to win the game in Small World is to have the most gold after a certain amount of turns. So, with that being said, now the first thing here is the instruction manual. This is one of the better instruction manuals that I've seen. It's very detailed. It gets into everything and makes the game really easy to understand, which is good. It's hard to see that nowadays. And what also we have here is kind of like cheat sheets. These are sheets that every player gets. It shows the basic instructions for Small World, and also has the powers and races that are in the game. So if you ever need to see what something does, you can revert back to your sheet, which is pretty good, pretty handy. So next are the game boards. There are two different boards. There's one for 2 players, and there is another side for 3 players. And then on the other board, it's for 4 to 5 players. It is a bigger board because obviously you have more players. And this is it here. So, like I said, it kind of has that Risk feel because you're taking over these areas on the board. But like I said, that's where the similarities end. You don't really have to defend those areas that you take over. So the first thing you notice inside the box are the race tokens. I'll put some to the side so you can see what they look like. But these are the tokens that you'll be picking from the start of the game. You do randomly pick out 5, and you pair them with the power tokens, which are here. Now, you randomly pick 5 and pair them with the races, and that's how you start the game. You pick from one of the races, one of the powers that are combined, and that's what you'll use for your turn. Now, you're not stuck to that race and power. You can pick new races and powers throughout the game, which is pretty cool. The game has different ways of staying fresh because you can always get a new combination of power and races. Now, inside here are the coins. This is what you need to collect to win. Whoever has the most coins at the end of the game is the winner. Now, there's also little tokens here that go into play with different powers. I won't get into those, but I will show you that there are mountain tokens here that are placed on the mountain regions on the board. Now, this is basically just to give you like extra defense if you own that territory. Last thing here is this box here. It is the storage for the race tokens. Now, with the combination of races and powers, it'll tell you which tokens you're getting from here, and this is what you'll actually put on the board itself to show which territories you're taking over. All right, so we'll go ahead and take a look at how the game plays out. We started playing the game. We actually went around before recording just so we can go through the motions of playing a game because it is new for Joey, a friend of ours that we have today playing with us. We figured let's go through it one time so he can get a feel for it before we start talking about it and playing it again. So we are set up to play another game, which we're going to play now. All right. So while he's taking his turn, we're going to talk about the first thing, which is how easy or hard is it to learn the game. Now, for me personally, I am a huge fan of Small World. I absolutely love it. So I'm going to start with the guy that's new to it. I'll start with Joey first. What did you think of like learning the game? Was it easy, hard? quick catch on.
It's pretty quick to get it. I mean, there's a lot of information that you're not going to remember off the bat, but luckily they give you this handy little chart here that helps to remind you what each character of the game does and the special abilities. So having something like that is definitely helpful since there's a lot of components to this game.
No, that's true. I remember first playing and I had to revert back to this quite a few times, but now I kind of know everything by heart, but I like to have it just in case to remember what certain races do, especially when you start adding expansions and stuff like that. So Zach's taking his first turn now. He's being very methodical.
Yeah, you gotta be when you're conquering territories. I mean,
so knowing that this game, like you said, already has the high replay value, that kind of goes into our next point. The combination of power and races is always changing. So, the chance of having, in this case, a wealthy giant, could it happen in the future? Yeah, absolutely. But the chances of it not happening again are higher than it would be than it happening again. And when you add more people to the game, like we're playing just 3, it goes up to 5. When you add 5 people, it actually can get pretty crazy. So I usually try to get this game on the table anytime I can. I do enjoy playing it, and everyone else that I've taught ends up liking it as well. So, I mean, do you see yourself playing it? Well, we'll start with you again. First time, could you see yourself playing this again?
Yeah, I think I briefly kind of went into it earlier. Like the replay value here, I think is great because of the dynamic of each character being different every time. I like that. So you may like a certain race that you get this round because you got a certain ability with them, but next round they may not get paired up with an ability that you particularly will be an advance, for you to help you out, advantage. So I think something like that is actually really interesting. Like some other games, you may get a certain character and you're stuck with that character the whole game. And even in this one, you have an opportunity to change your race at least once, which I think is a pretty cool feature of it. So every time you play, it's different, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, and I know you've played a couple times. You've never been opposed to playing.
No. I think it seems a little intimidating at times, but it's a game I think that makes you really want to learn it if you really enjoy these type of games, because the different combinations, you're going to want to study the components of them and try to find what combination you think is going to be best most of the time, as there really is no guarantee of exactly what character combination traits. So if anything, it teaches you to just be a little more on your feet and adaptable, because I'm imagining with 5 people at the maximum amount of players, this game gets really interesting, quick-paced, and forces you to be on your toes a lot.
Yeah, I've played one 5-player game, and it was insane.
Is there a bigger board or no?
Yeah, there's a bigger board.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's bigger, but there's still you're gonna one turn you might have 5 areas. By the time it comes back to you, might be down to 1.
Gotcha.
It gets pretty crazy. But so the game itself, high replay value, something you can definitely play often. If you enjoy this type of game, if you're not the person that likes area control games, taking over areas, something like a Risk, that's usually what it gets compared to. Maybe this might not be for you, but if you're okay with those games, this game is pretty easy to set up. I know it has a lot of pieces, but easy setup, and it's definitely something you can play often. Now, the other thing that we talk about is what group would this be good for. For me personally, I wouldn't recommend starting this off with someone who's never played board games before. If they're only into Monopoly or Uno or something like that, I wouldn't start them with this. People who have gotten into the games, the games that we've talked about in the past, if they've played stuff like that, I feel like they could definitely pick this up. So I honestly think this is good for any group. Not for the younger crowd, because it has more strategy behind it. But outside of that, I think it could work for anyone. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think it's a game that may seem intimidating, but even in the more casual types, I think they can get into this game. They can learn it over time. I think this is a game that's open to anybody. They just have to be willing to take the time to learn it, and I think over time they'll inspire other people to learn the game and have a lot of fun as well.
I agree.
Good.
Couldn't have said it better.
Couldn't have said it better. That's exactly everything I was going to say.
It's on the same way.
So basically, great for anyone. Obviously not for the younger crowd, but I mean this is something you can play with your family, your friends, the hardcore group, the guys that just want to get together and play easy games, casual games. This works for anyone really. Obviously, once again, if there's someone that doesn't like Risk, that's the big thing, because a lot of people, you say Risk and they're automatically turned off. This might not work for them because it's kind of the same concept, even though it is different. But if you explain it to them like that, it's a Risk type game, they're probably going to say no. So anywhere outside of a younger crowd or people who don't like Risk, it really can honestly work for anyone else. We finished the game. We have a back-to-back champion, Zach. He pretty much handled us, so
Destroyed us.
I think you'll make a great president one day, man.
Eh.
You'll decree a mandatory beer night.
Yeah,
every
national
week.
holiday and the Department of Skeletons, since they seem to be the most helpful.
Yes, they're skeletons. You ran for the skeletons, so you did have your favorite race. So, anyways, that's the end of this video here. Small World, pick it up if you can. Like I said, it's a personal favorite of mine. I love it. These guys just started playing, Joey today especially, and they seem to enjoy it. I won't speak for them. They can say if they did or not. But anyways, that's it for another episode of Boards and Brews. Please subscribe, and we'll see you again next week.